Hello, happy Friday. I'm so sorry that I can't be with you today. I've been invited to present some of my research at the International TESOL conference. Um, and so that is happening this morning. I'm in Atlanta presenting some of the work that I've done in the past. And so, unfortunately, that means that I can't be with you, but you're in good hands. I'm going to spend a few minutes giving you finishing up the lecture for chapter 8, and then you'll watch a small video and respond to that the way that you normally would, just if I were here. So you can submit your papers to the facilitators that are in the room. So far this week, we've looked at global inequality and global stratification, and I hope that you've seen that it's a much more complex issue than just talking about first world, second world, third world. Certainly even more complex than talking about developing, underdeveloped. We can't get away from that language, but at least we can show why the language is a little bit problematic. So today what I want to do is just present two theories of global inequality. The first one is modernization theory, and modernization theory is not used very much anymore. It really was developed out of the 1950s, and so it really came with some of that out of that Cold War discussion and ideology. Post World War II would be where I would put it. When we started looking globally, looking at deeply in colonization and then the decolonization era, and looking at classifying countries. And modernization was a theory in which we would classify the world in terms of, this is where we started getting some of that first world, second world, third world language, in terms of where the countries are in terms of their economic development and economic growth. So some of the ideas that we've talked about all week are coming together. Everything we've done up until this discussion of modernization theory has been describing inequality. We haven't tried to theorize about how do we explain inequality. Modernization theory explains inequality by saying all countries are at a different stage in their economic development. And so this idea, why it's not really used, I mean, that's just how I'm going to teach it, is because the modernization has this sense that all countries are, once they get to that stage 5, they're all going to look like the model of Western Europe or even the United States imperialist modes of development, or of the first world, or of this stage 5 high mass consumption, as you can see on the screen. This is what we get with modernization theory. It's that all countries are somewhere along this same linear part of development, and the development was going to look the same. And so this sense of homogenization, everyone's going to look like us, right, is what those who Rostow and those that ascribe to modernization theory would have said. And that's why really it's insufficient right now. Anthropologists have done too much work to look at the beauty and the complexity and the diversity. And, we talked about cultural diversity earlier in the semester, that we can't say that modernization is going to look the same in every single place, right? That detracts, that's too detractive of the beauty and the vibrancy of all of the different cultures that we have in the world. But this was so important, this was so much a part of our discussions that we haven't been able to meaningfully get away from the modernization paradigm. We still have a developing this linear sense of discussion with development. What we've done now is we've tried to make it a little bit more complex, and we've started to look at, it's not just economic development, we have human development. What are some human rights, right? We have a Bill of Human Rights that we look at now. So it's just, we look at it with more complexity now. What can we say that does fit? Does everyone have the right to certain things? Are there certain and that's really where a lot of the work is coming today. And what are those things that everyone should have the right to? And how do we measure that and look at that? So that's moving away from the 5 stages of growth with Rostow and modernization theory. We don't you impose this as academics today, but we still see the power of this in common discourses today. The next one to discuss is dependency theory. And dependency theory is a conflict perspective, where modernization would very much be structural functionalist coming out of Durkheim's work. Dependency is coming out of this idea of conflict, of people, certain groups, certain elites, power elites in countries, not just everyone in a country, but the power elites in those countries, really working in order to maintain exploitative relationships with other countries. The textbook has dependency theory, has world systems theory, and has a new international division of labor theory, NIDL, as all being three separate theories. And they're absolutely three separate theories, but they are all conflict theories, and they're all different ways of falling under that conflict umbrella. And I would argue that dependency might be a paradigm. So dependency theory comes into the dependency paradigm, and NIDL is a part of this dependency paradigm. World systems is a part of the dependency paradigm, and then the theory as it's presented in the textbook is part of the dependency paradigm. So I'm simplifying it a little bit, but I don't think this is making it too simplistic, especially for a 200 level survey course. If you can just understand this, you're really doing well. Global dependency theory looks at, or the dependency paradigm says that global poverty can be explained by exploitation, at least partly. Why have we had so much global poverty? Why does global poverty persist? Well, it does because we have these exploitative relationships. And so where the World Bank, for example, says that global poverty is actually moving down, the dependency theory would challenge the way that the World Bank makes those measures and how it makes those descriptions and makes those claims, and would say that the World Bank is an agent of exploitation. And that's, again, that's getting very specific. But we can look at the ways in which the way that argument is made is we can see how extraction happens in much of the world. Many of the natural resources, maybe oil would be a good example. Oil is extracted from parts of the world, and people don't get paid for the oil, or at least the distribution of the resources in some of the places isn't equal. So oil extraction would be an example. Diamond extraction is an example. Cocoa beans, right? Our chocolate, our coffee beans, our coffee. Do farmers who produce these goods get paid a fair living wage for their labor? No, they don't. And you can look it up. Maybe in free trade areas, it gets better, but that's only for those that are purchasing free trade. Cotton would be one in certain parts of the world. Sugarcane, right? We can see lots of different exploitative relationships, and literally all over the world this happens. And so the idea for dependency theory is it's in the interest of wealthy countries to maintain these exploitative dependent relationships. So they're not going to pay fair wages to allow for the types of human development that would be beneficial for the people in a nation because of it's in their best interest not to, they being those elites in the wealthy areas. And so part of this dependency theory, another aspect of it, remember I'm kind of lumping a lot of different theories into a greater paradigm, is that aid is a mechanism that keeps countries from being self-sustaining. By giving so much aid, what happens is then that takes away from the local economies. You're going to watch a film that's going to allude to rice imports in Haiti and how that hurt Haitian farmers. And you can certainly look that up yourself and see what has happened with that. We can see U.S. aid is necessary all over the world, but is it necessary in the way that it's done? What a lot of countries say, and I'm certainly not the one to say this, I'm copying them, but say we want, quote, trade, not aid, or we want fair trade prices rather than just these international handouts. And so that would be the argument of that dependency theorists would make. This idea of aid maintaining dependency is one that's very well established, and it's one that's discussed really ubiquitously all over in academic circles and in a lot of different disciplines. It's certainly not just sociology. And so I really think it's important to wrestle with. There's a book that is kind of good at this 200 level that you can discuss. Keith Corbett, it's a Christian book. I'm just going to grab it. Some of you, I'm sure, have read it, but When Helping Hurts gets to kind of this idea that aid can maintain dependency. Aid can actually hurt. And so how can we help without hurting is really the tension that I want you to wrestle with today. So I want you to watch the film. It's about 12 minutes. And as you watch the film, pay attention to and discuss. What do they specifically say? What are the ways that bringing free goods and medicines and services becomes a problem for the local economy? They're specifically talking about Haiti here. Why is it that all of these billions of dollars that have flooded into Haiti have not helped? In fact, they have made it worse. How is offering free medical care a problem for local doctors? You'll hear from a doctor talking about that. What happened to the economy when rice was imported as aid? How does that hurt? How do we see helping hurt here? But what's the other side of that tension? Why is helping necessary, right? Like we have that side of it too. This is not a problem to solve. We don't say we're going to stop aid. We're going to stop helping, right? We also say, though, we're not going to keep doing it in a way that maintains these inequalities and these dependent relationships. So what I want you to write is I want you to describe this tension between aid and dependency. Just really get into why is this a tension? Just describe it. And then why is this tension something that churches and that those of us who are planning on engaging in short-term missions trips should wrestle with? Why is this important to us as we think about redemptive service and doing our Christianity? So this is how we're doing faith integration today. So describe it, and then why does it matter for us as Christians who are called to give a glass of water in the name of Jesus? So I hope you enjoy. I really look forward to reading what you write. Do it in pairs, do it in groups, have good conversation. Have a great weekend. Don't forget that quiz. Study for the test on Monday. Send me an email if you have any questions. Cheers.